So welcome. So this is the lightning talks for room 2. So the list of speakers we have are here. If you're expected to give a lightning talk this morning, and your name isn't on this list, then you're probably in group 1, room 1. Okay, so thrilled to welcome David Meredith. So these are 5-minute talks, lightning talks. We have to be really strict on time because we've got, I think, 11 or 12 to get through. I've got a piece of paper that says 1 minute left. We will be enforcing the 5-minute rule very, very strictly. So you'll be rugby tackled, Dave, if you go over. All of the slides are in one deck. So
let's cracking then. Yeah. Hey everyone, nice to.
No questions. I'm afraid that if we've got time at the end for Q&A, and we'll have that. Otherwise, over lunch and breakout session.
Nice to meet you all. I'll buy, some for the first time, others not. So I'm changing tack slightly because I saw that the DARE UK guys and that they're here anyway and doing things. So I'll focus more on SMDH TRE today. So I'm from the HEARTRE Centre. We're based up in Warrington, near Liverpool. We're a growing centre. Really, the purpose of the HEARTRE Centre is to drive advanced computing for UK industry. Okay, we're not focusing on research for research's sake. It's about the application of research, putting research to work. I lead the RSE team. We are currently 25 and growing, so we also have vacancies for developers. Okay, a core part of the SMDH project, it's the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub. A core part of that is the Manufacturing Data Exchange Platform. The MDEP, the TRE is part of the MDEP. So we provide this trusted research environment. We've started out with our University of Dundee colleagues and adopting their Treehouse solution, and that's working great for us on AWS. Underpinning that, we're working with a company called Falcor that's putting all the transactions onto a blockchain. So all the kind of CRUD events, create, read, update, delete, they're all going on the trust chain, so we can validate everything. We have Asset Explorer portal, so this is for sharing data sets, any assets basically. We've taken an open source solution called CCAN and built on top of that. It's the kind of the number one, I guess, it was anyway, the number one kind of data sharing kind of solution available that was open source that we could fork. We are linking to VMTs. Now, VMTs are a TRE. It's just virtual manufacturing testbed. What that means is it's virtual machines running on AWS with pre-configured, pre-installed software for the manufacturing space, so that SMEs can come in and have a go and play with software that they perhaps haven't had exposure to. They can de-risk, have a play, and this is all provided through SMDH. We've also got a community social platform. It's all under our single sign-on solution. So, we've got various kind of roles and so on to access this. It's Innovate UK's largest project yet. Okay, so it's about 30 million in funding and 20 in co-creation. And we're leading work package 2, which is to deliver all of the software infrastructure. I'll skip past this one because it's basically the same as this one. This is more interesting. So this isn't the canonical kind of TRE system architecture design. There's lots of other components going on in this. But basically, we have an AWS lake in the top left here. Users can either batch upload data using S3 via our asset portal, or they can stream sensor data onto the lake via MQTT, all the kind of the usual routes. We're kind of strongly tied to AWS at this point. We use AWS IoT Core, basic ingest, certificate vending machine, and so on. So this is the TRE bit at the bottom. This is based on the Treehouse solution, which is itself based on AWS Service Workbench, which is an open source solution to build TREs in Amazon. And so this is building kind of, showing Linux or Windows desktop VMs, and these VMs have access to all the AWS services, and we assign the privileges and so on. We've got data egress and ingress, what airlock kind of controls, so that we can control that data doesn't leak outside of the TRE and so on. This is what it kind of looks like. So you go to the SMDH Data Hub. The TRE is down here in the bottom, the trusted data analysis, but we've also got, an open version, which is what we've called the open research environment, or VRE, call it what you will. That's similar to the TRE, but it's not so pinned down. Okay, so the VMs and things have far more control. So you can log on. You need an account, so you can log on to your service workbench. This is what it looks like. Service workbench is there so that you can SMEs can create and invite other users to their workspace, their study, and then they can spin up a VM. And this is what it looks like. It's all in the browser. It's using Service Workbench AppStream 2 under the hood. And then you can full screen it, and it's very usable. It takes a bit of time for these things to start up, but once you've got it running and going, it's very usable. So finally, the summary. We're building TRE kind of solutions so that SMDH data experts can work on SMEs data, small, medium enterprises in the manufacturing space. We're using Treehouse with our University of Dundee colleagues. We're gonna, we are following the 5 principles and that kind of good stuff. We are liaising with AWS on further service workbench developments. That's kind of work in practice. We're also liaising with DARE UK to help solicit requirements by leading workshops and so on. Issues. Okay, service workbench, startup performance. I've just mentioned that you have to have this always on AppStream 2 instance pool in the background, which leads to higher costs. It's tied to AWS. I'm looking for a hybrid cloud solution that we can install on premise for our new data center at Hartree Centre. This is going to be a new HPC facility for the UK, and all done.
Thank you, David. I should say that most of the speakers have agreed to upload their slides onto Zenodo afterwards, so you will be able to have a closer look at the slides after the session. Peter from ELIXIR, right?
Thank you very much. So I am Peter Maccallum. I'm the Chief Technical Officer with ELIXIR. I'll introduce ELIXIR briefly in a moment for those of you who aren't familiar with it. This is the UK TRE community meeting, but I'm going to talk to you about places beyond the UK for most of this talk. I'm also giving this talk on behalf of Jonathan Tedds. He's with us online. We both submitted flash talks with the same title. This is not a coincidence. So first to introduce ELIXIR. ELIXIR is the European research data infrastructure for biomolecular data. So we started with a focus on databases and training, but we also looked at software, bioinformatics software, the data standards that allow the software and the databases to interact, compute resources, and networks of scientific and technical experts. We work on pan-European projects, for example, by COVID, building on the experience of COVID to prepare us for the next pandemic, working on the European genomic data infrastructure. So this is where our requirements for TREs start to appear, dealing with molecules which have no rights of their own, but associating with people who, unfortunately, from our point of view, do. So building a genomic data infrastructure pushes us into the space that you're also familiar with. And then beyond that, across the EU regions of Europe, we also have the upcoming European health data space. So a network for both research and healthcare provision that the Commission have in mind for the future of healthcare across Europe. And we're part of all of these programs. And we, of course, share a familiar problem to you all. We have data that lives in individual locations and needs to be, in some cases, moved, certainly accessed by different researchers. We want to be able to create networks of TREs, sometimes based on jurisdictions which are national, sometimes based on jurisdictions which are topic-based, clinical trials, for example, under clinical trials legislation. The data is sensitive, the data is high volume, the data is complex to analyze and difficult to move. And of course, I didn't need to come here and tell you that, you knew that already. However, we're not the only people with this problem. So ELIXIR, we look at biomolecular data. Across Europe, there are other organizations as well. EUDAT, the Europe-wide data infrastructure, ECRAN, the research infrastructure for clinical trials across Europe, CESTA, the social sciences research infrastructure across Europe. ELIXIR has a UK component, and members of our UK component are HDR-UK as well. So we already had quite a large network who had this shared problem. Unfortunately, we all belong to another organization which is interested in sharing solved problems, and that organization is the European Open Science Cloud. They have put out a funding call, and we've been successful to this point. We haven't signed all the paperwork yet, but we've been granted a project to build a European network for trusted research environments. And this is the overall layout of the project. There's a couple of key points that I've picked out in PowerPoint. They look rather better. We've got 4 drivers. So we're a biomolecular research infrastructure, but we're also bringing together SESTA, social sciences, ECRAN, looking at clinical research and clinical trials, and environmental data, some external partners who are working on Internet of Things, smart cities, and so on. We have 15 countries who all have this problem, have some capability, and a set of agencies that we represent, ELIXIR, EUDAT, SESTA, etc. And what we're going to do in this project is over a period of 3 years, we're going to try to define an architecture. We're going to bring together the best practices. We're trying to get the TRE provision in these 15 countries to match the driver requirements from these 4 drivers, and present it all in the EOS context, which will allow people to find these capabilities, to compare these capabilities, and for us to start building a network of best practice TREs that will meet the requirements and be supported by all of these Europe-wide agencies. Here on the right, you'll see the details of the project itself. So what I've just talked about, the funding, the capability, and so on. Why does it matter here? Well, there's a couple of reasons you might care. Are you developing technology? Some of you in the room might be developing TRE technology. EOS Trust will be promoting the best-in-class solutions across Europe, and some of the DARE driver projects are already part of this project, and we'll be adopting more if we can. Are you working in multinational research? So already within the UK, you've got a bit of a multinational problem going on. It gets worse, trust me. EOS Trust will be seeking to enable federated and international data sharing between TREs. And are you developing a federal governance model? Not everyone here is developing federal governance models, but some of you are. We will need to develop solutions which can be delivered across multiple overlapping governance jurisdictions. That's quite a hard problem. If there are other people on the planet working on these problems, we want to be talking to you. So I'm hoping some of you are in the room here today as well. Did I make it?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Colleague Rob Baxter from DARE UK to talk about the TRE Federation.
Thanks, Balin. So this is the picture that Peter's just drawn, and one that Emily drew this morning. This is what the TRE landscape. I used to be a theoretical physicist many years ago, so I like to draw the simplest possible picture of things that I can. And this is my simple picture of the TRE landscape across the UK right now. We have data providers operating on behalf of data controllers. There are researchers over there who want to get their hands on those data. Everyone's moving towards trusted research environments as the place to do analysis with sensitive data. This was a Goldacre review steer. It's a good idea. No TRE, no data. Getting data into TREs, well, we do it right now. Yes, we do. Do we do it in the same way? No, we don't. Can we do it directly? Sometimes. Are we sending data to some information governance professional who's sitting there having to deal with lots of things? Yes, we are. Can we find what's in the network? Can we understand what data are available? In some cases, yes, we can. Not for every data. Can we index things? Can we link data together across these multiple providers, multiple TREs? Sort of. It all works. There's a lot of friction in this system. There's a lack of standardization. We can do it better. So this is what tomorrow's picture will look like. This is a data space, one could argue. Everyone in Europe is looking at a similar sort of thing. How do you standardize the sharing of sensitive data? And what does standardization mean? So DARE UK, we draw this picture. And this really standardizes on the lowest possible thing you could think of. So it's really dull. It looks at how do you connect TREs, data providers, all these other sources together in a trustworthy way that can be centrally managed. That's all it really says. Okay, that's the blue stuff. There are security service, standard security at each of the services. What does that mean? It means That's what security server means. That's how you implement standard security. Let's make sure it's managed, because who can join this federation? Well, somebody's got to set rules for it. That's got to be governed. It's got to be managed. Let's see if we can standardize the kinds of interactions. These are back office interactions between services. You'll notice the researcher is seeing exactly the same picture that she did before. She's logging into a TRE. Behind the scenes, that TRE is now doing magic. It's talking to the sensitive data sources out there in standardized ways. For query, for data movement, we can do this. Even for injecting software. If you like, this is the open safely route in many ways. Software comes in and is run automatically inside the TRE. So that's the picture that we draw from DARE UK. And you'll notice in nowhere do I say data is of this kind, data of this kind. We have to look across any definition you like of sensitive data in DARE UK. This is why this is really dull. It's very low-level infrastructure stuff. People keep asking me about data harmonization, and I point to people like Emily. Emily's going to solve data harmonization in health space laws. Yeah. So how are we getting there? So DARE UK, we have this overall architectural picture, but it's very high level. It doesn't talk about technology. There are solutions out there, and we've heard about some of them already today, that are pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that can help us do this. So we have 5 driver projects in DARE UK running right now. You'll hear about them all, I think, today. So very briefly, we have SARA and SACRO who are looking at, can we improve the safety and can we automate where it's safe to automate data coming into the system of TREs and data results leaving the system of TREs? And our answer is yes, we think we can. The 2 patterns that we see between TREs and data providers are, one, can we send queries from our TRE to remote TREs and do that federated analytics? Yes, we think we can. What standards, what technology do we need there? TRE-FX is looking at that for us. When we need to move data, and sometimes you need to move data, especially when you're talking linkage, how can we do that safely and securely in a way that the governance concerns travel with the data as they move and are maintained within the remote environment? Teleport's looking at that. And what is a TRE anyway? Anyone define it? Okay, SACRO is going to define it for us. There you go, and bring all these things together. So they have quite a hard job. And at the end of the day, we finish up with this picture of a managed federation, common security, standardized connections. And we have to look across to what Europe are doing to, when it comes to choosing the technologies that we might put in place to implement, say, the blue stuff in the middle, we need to make sure that's compatible with wherever the European health data space is going.
I feel like I've been run over. Okay, Pete.
Thank you.
Training and capacity building.
Right buttons. Fantastic. Right, my name's Pete Arnold. I work here at Swansea University, but over on the other campus. I'm co-located with the SAIL data bank. I'm here to give you a quick overview of the stuff we're doing in training and capacity building with ADR Wales. The aim here is to get ADR's fantastic administrative data sets out there and get social scientists using them for social research. There's a sort of data sets we're looking at: education, childcare, data, child data, justice data. All these fantastic things are out there. This should have a UK-wide application. We'll be working with the partners as we go. The reason for doing this is there are some people out there that don't seem to know there's these wonderful big data sets, what to do with them. Other people who know they're out there, but they're not quite sure how to get started or what to get going, don't have the right collaborators, right resources, right abilities. And there are other people who are looking at this and they've got nervous about things like governance, a possibility of their projects getting complex beyond control. And that's what we're here to try and solve. And the way we're going to try and solve this is with what I started calling this flexible learning. This is personalized learning. So I'm thinking precision medicine, precision learning. Okay, this is what we're trying to do. This seems to have 2 sort of aspects to this. First aspect are the obvious training things like data science, analysis, how you organize your studies, how you organize your data. But there are also elements to this of more product-specific stuff, so things that are specific to particular TREs that we might be getting involved with, so how you get into a TRE, what the particular tools are in your TRE. It may not be consistent with the way across.
Things like the workflow likely to be fairly similar across TREs, but may have little specific, product-specific bits in there. And we need to deal with that as well. Add to this the other bit, the outreach, telling people how we then, what the data sets are there, what they can use them for, what people have done already, case studies, that kind of thing as well. But also on the other end of this, community support. There's no way I can provide community support for everybody who's having a problem in all the TREs in the UK, even if I had a fantastic team, even if I was funded beautifully. So that needs a lot of community interaction. There's also networking and discussion aspects to that as well. The kind of platform we're looking at is things like the community, crowd.community, if you want to go and have a look at that we've got set up. So what is this? So how are we going to go about this? There are three things I think that we need to worry about. The things we're going to teach you, who you are and what things you want to learn, what your pathway through that teaching is, and then basically the practicalities of us doing it, which is 4 things. So the first thing, what are we going to teach you? There's a fantastic skills framework. This is the Alliance for Data Science Professionals. You've probably all seen this, all these people are organizing this. And you've got this 5 categories of learning that all data people are going to be learning parts of. You will have some of these, you will have the bits that you're missing. So the aim here is that we're going to have our data scientists, and they're going to know certain elements of stuff in there if they want to consider themselves a data scientist. So this is really useful for you understanding where you are in your career, for recruitment, for personal retention as well. It's a nice thing to have in place. There's also an expert level, once the things that you can expand to before you get to the next step. So there's the band of what people are if they're data scientists. They're not just data scientists. So if you look at the DARE UK work they've done over the last year or so, there are all these other personae up there that we've had a look at. And we've validated a fair bit of this with quite a number of workshops now with people, but both with that skills framework and with these personae. A couple of others have popped out. So we've got this domain data research scientist and the senior one of those, with more sort of leadership skills involved in there. They popped out of this thing as well. So that's what we're going to concentrate on. The first step will be the people with no previous data science knowledge. So maybe these are business leaders who know they want to use data. And we'll get them up to the state where they understand what goes into using this kind of data. So the actual process is good. They don't have to be able to do it, but they need to understand the process. They can actually get projects going with this involved. But our main win to get more social science research out there is going to be to get data scientists who know nothing about social science to know something about social science, and to get the social scientists who know nothing about big data, to get those two people up into this domain data research scientist place. And we can expand those to people who then lead these projects. They get more leadership aspects in them, and they can become experts in them as well. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to have a hierarchical system. These are the elements of the framework in here. If we take one of those elements, the whole thing's going to have, inputs, prerequisites on one side, outputs and qualifications on the other side. If we take one of these, for example, SQL, if we're teaching people SQL, there'll be a little box. There'll be prerequisites, there'll be qualification on the other side with an assessment, which I think is quite important, that you've got to have this assessed so you know people can do the SQL. And this may have little different flavors. People here don't know anything about computers, so they want to, understand all of the bits and pieces in there. Whereas a computer science guy just wants to get there quick. Okay, we may have some product-specific stuff up here, but you've got DB2 in your database. So they're going to have to be personalized and varied a little bit. So how are we actually going to do this? Well, we've learned a lot of stuff over COVID. So we can flip, we can blend, we can differentiate, we can do all of those things. But from our workshops that we've done, people actually want it self-paced learning. They want to do it at their own pace, on demand. What they also want to do is work-based learning. They want to use their own data sets. So we've got an issue here. So we're going to start looking at synthetic data, so we can use the data outside of the TRE as well. And they want a bit of a sudden burst of learning. So things like summer school, so they can get a big hit. Hopefully, at the end of all of that, what we'll end up with is a lot of social data research scientists capable of doing this kind of research.
Okay. Fatemeh Torabi on multi-TRE analysis, challenges, governance requirements, and federation. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very much honored to present to the community of experts who I always looked up to. So before I start, I want you to focus on one thing, and that's personalized health. So the challenges and things I'm going to propose is very summarized from researchers' point of view. And I'm glad to see that our work in first phase of HDR being heard by the TRE community. But where I am coming from is from a researcher who used these technologies and who really enjoyed residing in one of these TREs for long, and then working across the TREs, trying to implement the research question, trying to answer the questions for the public good. And by focusing on personalized health, I mean, out of our work comes an impact that we want patients to receive and them to feel cared for. And that's what motivates me on running analysis, finding the cases in the data sets. So the challenges I'm gonna summarize in the multi-TRE analysis are focused on governance requirements and federation. And that's hopefully where we are gonna end up. So during the COVID-19, we looked at multiple aspects. And one of the research questions we ran was looking at a very rare condition that was happening post-vaccination. The cases in this condition were rare, so we couldn't reach a reliable answer by working in a single TRE. And that's where my need came from. We were, as analyst teams, coming together, having chats of how we can deploy these analytics that we developed in multiple TREs. And what was happening between us as researchers was had these three themes in it. So I had my own analytical pipeline who was developed and checked across my own team. Scotland groups, England and Northern Ireland, we all deployed the same research protocol using different analytical pipelines. So our code was deployed in different TREs using the facilities, and the TREs, over time, we found out the TREs also had different disclosure control checks and different standards for data in and out, the phenotypes. So we also had challenges on pulling data, aggregating those. There were a lot of conversations. So the solution came to us by talking to each other, but also brought the desire and the need. And what if we were living in a world of TREs which had same standards? We could enter. When I have access to this TRE, I'm a safe researcher. Why the other TRE wants me to now take a few more boxes to let me see my colleagues' data? So we couldn't share a screen over Zoom. A lot of challenges, as you can see. And also the clinical phenotypes. So my colleague was identifying hypertension in our cohort and passing the code to me. Well, that code wasn't in my residing TRE. We had to code this to identify the cases, to be able to deploy the research protocols in the same way. And again, a lot of conversation. So this is the current state of research. We are using the existing facilities within the TREs. And that's, I think, one of the things that's blocking the multi-TRE analysis, because the research is happening, although we have the limitations, but researchers are skilled, they kind of can run the research within the TRE. So research questions getting answered, but can we give a personalized answer to all type of health conditions? Not yet. And the evolved state would be when we have a UK-wide cohort table, which has flags for, these are from Wales, these are from England, these are from Northern Ireland. So I put as my second and last slide, a practical and attainable solution would be something that comes from this evolved and gradual evolution that we went through as community. And I'm glad to see developments on the governance is happening, on standardization, on the new and very high quality TRE development. So yeah, that's a researcher point of view on appreciation to your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fatemeh. Okay. Hi, Jim. Jim's going to be talking about the SACRO project, how it can help TREs work together.
Yep. So I'm Jim Smith from UWI. I guess I should probably start. I've been working one of the company's biggest TREs for about 15 years, which is Office for National Statistics. So I'm hoping, because I've just got back from holiday and I haven't had chance to practice, this is going to make sense. Yeah, so that's who I am. So as part of DARE's first phase, they went out to lots and lots of TREs and they surveyed the landscape and they said, and they're looking at what are the blocks to TREs working together. And when they asked lots of TREs, they came up with this sentence. There's already significant issues with staffing resources to let you do the manual checking or disclosure. And let's be clear, a TRE that doesn't let you output anything is not a TRE, it's just an expensive sink. And that staffing issue is a real problem. There are some methods which get around it by saying you can apply automatic rules, but that ignores what a lot of people in the field already knows, that principles-based approaches have taken over in economics. ONS, when I did all their stuff with business stuff, they have no problem publishing a table saying that there are no trawler repair shops in Birmingham. If you won't let me have a table of data out of cancer incidences by gender, because there's a 0 under women getting prostate cancer, then I'm sorry, that's not a good solution. So the recommended solution was that where possible, there should be automation brought in to review outputs to support the retention of skilled personnel because they're doing more interesting stuff and to provide support from them. And obviously looking forward, this touches on machine learning and things like that, where people need lots more support. So DARE were kind enough to fund a consortium of 7 universities, 5 TREs, HDR-UK and some other research units. There's Project SACRO, which is semi-automated checking research outputs. And how I think this can help individual TREs and TREs work together is a number of ways. For individual TREs, it will free up your staff time. So what we've developed is a suite of like-for-like drop-in replacements. It's built on a common engine written in Python using industry standard packages, stats models, and pandas, with front-end lightweight translators from commands in R, obviously the ones in Python, and in Stata, that the researchers just use them. If they want to use a table, make a table, instead of doing pandas.crosstab, they do acro.crosstab. Similar things in R and in Stata. What then happens is that our lightweight code captures those and does an immediate disclosure risk assessment of their command. Researchers get that at the same time they get their analysis feedback. So they save time because they can see what them could make is not going to be okay. And they can say, okay, I don't want that one, or I want to put in an exception request because that's a structural 0 or whatever. They can add those comments in. So they save time by producing fewer disclosive outputs requested for the disclosure checkers to look at. And they can add the comments and the context and stuff. So that saves time because you don't get the rounds of discussion by email threads that are so hard to audit about why should I let this out and what have you done here, whatever. And we've also produced a tool that lets the TRE staff ingest their outputs and the JSON formatted output of all this checking in a nice pretty tool that lets them quickly see where the problems are with any outputs and click on the ones they want to allow out, put crosses in there and wrap it all up nicely and produces it. Where I think this can help cross-TRE cooperation is by helping establish this governance framework, okay? So one of our important work packages was that we've done a load of work with members of the public, with patients, about saying, okay, so the Information Commission officers say you can't, so that your data should not be subjected to automatic decision-making. What does that mean? How do you feel about that if there is some automation going on in the decisions about what should be allowed out? So we've got a consensus statement which we would encourage every organisation represented here in the room, and we're going out to Europe and beyond to sign up to this. And it's a set of principles which we think should apply to any solution that people are going to put in place that's going to make automated disclosure checks. Okay, we don't talk about SACRO as an example of how that might be applied, but the key point is this set of principles which are very much developed in collaboration with the public about that. The other thing is if you're going to do federation and you want to know what different TREs and different data sets can have different risk appetites, well, there needs to be a standard machine readable format for specifying how that's done. And that's one of the things we've done, which means that you can allow it and take account of, as I say, different risk appetites. Okay, what would we like you to do now? I'm hoping that some of you are here thinking, oh, that sounds interesting. Contact sacro.contact@ue.ac.uk. We've got a Medium web page which we set up. There's a YouTube channel starting to be populated. There are GitHub repos. This is all open source. At the moment, we're in phase 2 trials with the TRE partners who have been involved, and we've got a number of people in the UK and beyond who are saying we're reaching out to, and they're going to be doing some trials with us as well before the end of October. So what we'd like people who are interested in getting involved is get in touch with us, and we'll phase you into our rollout program. And I guess I've got lots of time left, so I can stop early.
Okay, yeah, and there are as you can see, there are the links and etc. So these slides will be available afterwards. Carole, Goble, welcome. The TRE-FX DARE Sprint Project, the ROCrates.
I think this is the longest title. So let me just press the button. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the TRE-FX project, which is developing a federated analytics solution using digital objects and workflows. And I'm doing this along with a whole basket of organizations. So this is all a part of a DARE Drive sprint, which is a 9-month sprint, bringing together the federated analytics community, the vendors and open source platforms, infrastructure providers, and established TREs, in order to be able to try to solve a particular problem that actually has already been hinted towards in our wonderful opening keynote, which is you can't always get the data into one TRE, but analysis across multiple TREs is a pain. And it's a pain because all these different federated analytics environments, all these different TREs have different unique standards for moving between the different infrastructures. Each TRE develops its own bespoke solution in order to be able to connect to the federated analytic tools and vice versa. And each must be independently tested against 5 safes and validated by our PPIE and governance frameworks. So we're working with a whole bunch of TREs, Treehouse, which we already heard about, Sail, which we already heard about, with our commercial providers to be able to say, well, okay, what could we do to improve that? How do we standardize the flow of information, flow of metadata for federated analysis within the 5 safes framework? And how can we develop a mechanism of running federated analytical workflows for the different queries in the TREs that's technology agnostic? And in particular, how can we assemble this using stuff that already exists, which is something that Emily emphasized this morning, using existing tools, existing TREs, existing standards, and move the needle. So that means if we're going to move the needle so other people can use it, the solutions, it has to handle diversity and has to be practical, not reinventing. If we designed all TREs from scratch, again, this is what we would do, because that's absolutely impossible. So in order to be able to do the streamlined federated analytics, we've really got 5 kind of different areas that we're working on. Of course, we're using standards, particularly the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health Standards. The first is we've developed this notion of digital objects that standardize the flow of information for 5 safes, and that's where we handle all the metadata need to operate this. And there we've reused something called ROCrates, which has been developed as part of the ELIXIR program that you heard earlier. So that is a way of a common standard in order to be able to move around and within TREs. The second is we've developed a submission layer using technologies like Hutch, which came out of an earlier DARE sprint, and Bitfont, which is commercial environment, as well as DataShield and so on. A submission layer and TRE agents that will handle the 5 safes management given those objects. Then we have our computational workflow systems to be able to execute the queries regardless of the workflow language or environment that you actually choose to use. And again, we're using ELIXIR technologies, the workflow execution service. We then will slot into the SACRO and SARA synergies there with authorization disclosure control. That isn't what we do in this project. We're expecting to be able to bring those in from JIM and other projects. And the fifth one that isn't on here is a set of processes. So we have to operate this within a process framework, the review process. How do we check those digital objects? How do we validate them? How do we do the workflow retrieval? How do we do sign-offs? How do we do disclosure control and so on? So all of that is within our project. We have a minimal viable product demonstrator that's been developed by SAIL and the CERT team in Swansea. Hurrah! Local people. And we also have a 5 safes ROCrates specification, which is now in its 4th iteration, which is all open and you can join in on that activity. How do I actually assemble the metadata associated with my requests and with my workflows to run them? And to conclude, yay, on my last slide, we're rolling this into production. This is going to be part of the Federated Analytics Programme of TRE-UK. It's also rolling in to those projects that you heard from before, from Peter, notably EOSC and Trust and by COVID, and the whole of ELIXIR activities. And if you want to know more, you want to join in, see if your TRE can adopt these technologies, see if your analytic platform can also adopt these technologies, want to be part of the specification team for the digital objects, then here's the website. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Carole. Next up, we have Microsoft's Trusted Research Environment capabilities. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So my name is Rob Heath. I lead the Azure Health and Education teams in the UK. You'll be surprised to hear the Microsoft guys got one slide, and this is it. So we've worked in the research community and supported that community for some time now, working across academic, healthcare, commercial settings, not least our future health. Hopefully we get a name drop later on in that one as well for you. So we wanted to do the opposite and just share our experiences a little bit, which actually matches Emily's presentation in the keynote earlier, because it's some very similar learnings from our side as well. So there are a few options available when you come to go into the research space. We support both partners and customers, so you can choose to build or buy, and both actually have the place. Don't walk into an environment where you want to build something though, and you don't have the skills to go and support it, develop it, and deliver that very well yourselves. Equally, don't think you haven't quite got the skills yet, but you want to buy something, but you know you need to customize the living daylights out of it. That just won't work for you as well. So both have a place, but be very clear on what you're looking for from your research environment when you're choosing to build or buy and which way to go for it. The tech, actually, it's easy for Microsoft to say this is the easy bit. The challenge is making sure that you've got the commercial and governance structures in place to actually use it. We've worked on many, many TRE projects whereby the tech environment is being built, put in place, and then the red tape comes into play. When you're building your critical path in terms of how you do this and how you go live with it, the critical path needs to co-term for both processes to run side by side. Failure to do that will mean that you have challenges. You may need to re-engineer something which could actually really take a lot of time to go back and start from the beginning again. So make sure you run both of those things in parallel. Standards, as was called out earlier, are really essential. The collaboration piece is really important, but also be thinking around how you can start to use future technologies as well. So by using standards, that's going to give you the opportunity to use new things that come to light that you may not know about. Let's say fictitiously, there's a thing called AI that might be floating around right now. How do you ensure that your research environment is in a position to utilize those things when they come to market, as well as a collaboration piece? By the way, drop the mic moment, I've just found out we've got $20,000 worth of funding available for anyone wanting to use OpenAI. The submissions have got to be in by the 12th of September, so grab me, and I've got some money around this. So give me a shout shortly if you want to go and play in that space. Do not create the data silos, especially in the healthcare space. We've all worked in environments whereby we've had data we want to access, we want to use, we want to collaborate with, but we've seen vendors create silos and data locks that you just can't access that additional piece of information that you've been putting into. Don't create another one. This is an opportunity to create open data sources and open data repositories that you can collaborate and work with other organizations on. As I said before, you don't know what's next. So make sure you're future-proofing by using standards to be ready to go and do that. Security and privacy is really, really important. We've walked into a number of research environments which pretty much look like somebody buying a really, really knowledgeable, well-versed person buying a device, putting it under a desk, dropping a load of data on there, but it's really secure because they've got a password, and the password is really strong. It's got numbers, letters, characters, and just in case they forget the password, it's on a post-it note on the screen, so it's dead secure, but it's really important data. Creating security and privacy policies that mean that is wrapped around the environment. When a user comes to access data, they've got role-based access control as standard by default. They come in and you have wrapped that policy around them in their entirety. That's really, really important. So making sure that you've got guidance around the way the data is used, it's curated, it's shared, and having that available to everybody that's using the TRE, have that from the ground up, have that from the beginning, and make sure it's in place. And then finally, looking at the way you deliver training and support. This is an evolving space all the time. Don't assume that people that are going to be using this have access to the skills, the knowledge, and the understanding of how it works. And equally, this evolves all the time. New technologies are released. We've just announced Fabric, which is a whole new way of working using Copilot to go and deliver analytics and the way that you can access data. Make sure that there is ongoing training support available to people that are in the organization that maybe have worked in lots of different ways previously, and they're going to have to spend time looking towards how they can go and pick this up and start to work forward on it. How are we doing for time? I'm pretty close. Awesome. Okay, so I'll just finish off on that note I said earlier that I dropped the mic with. We have available a funding pot that's just been released today. I've got some links to share later, but we have $20,000 available of credit for research projects that you can apply for online. I've literally got to get the applications in by the 12th of September, though. The credits can be used up until the end of 2024, so quite a bit of time to go and use them. Give me a shout. I've only just got the details, but I've got the links and I can shout around if that's okay later on, just to have a look at what's available in there. But bringing OpenAI and bringing up ChatGPT to life in research environments presents a massive opportunity for everybody. Love to have conversations with you all around how that can land. Thank you.
Marvelous. Thank you, Rob. Okay. Next up, we have James Robinson from the Alan Turing Institute, who's going to talk about the Turing data safe haven.
Just arrows for going to your slides, is it? Or...
Yeah.
Great. Hi. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Turing Institute's data safe haven. So this is a project we've been working on for a few years now. I think it's been about 5 years. And really what we're aiming to do is to remove barriers to working safely and effectively with sensitive data by promoting and demonstrating a culture of open and community-led development of interoperable foundational infrastructure and governance. So I think this is something that everyone here in this room would say is a good idea. And a lot of people are also trying to do these types of things. So what we're trying to do specifically at the Turing is sort of the combination of these things. So partly our infrastructure as code TRE solution, partly work on information governance and standards, and partly community building. So for instance, we've been quite involved in this community that we're part of here right now, the UK TRE community, and we want to continue work in those kind of areas. So our infrastructure as code solution, it's a deployable, reproducible, open source infrastructure. We've got an accompanying IG framework that we've also made openly available. And obviously with our community building work, we've been trying to make sure that everyone is able to contribute to the work we're doing. And of course, all of this has to go along with actually doing this for real. We're dog fooding our own code. We're using this for production, analysis of sensitive data at the Turing. So all of the work that's done at the Turing on sensitive data uses this code and this IG setup and so on. We also have done some work, again, so on the IG side, around classification of data sets, projects really into different categories. And this is something that some people here might already be familiar with, but we come up with these sort of 5 different tier levels of the sort of types of projects. So it's not just about classifying data sets, but it's the combination of the data set and the work you want to do with it. And we've got these 5 levels ranging from at the bottom sort of publicly available open information, the kind of stuff you could do on your laptop. You don't need a TRE for that. And then sort of up through things where you might worry about having your research scooped by another research group or something, and right through up to the most sensitive data sets and sort of personal data, things that state actors might be interested in, that kind of thing. A very brief overview of what the Turing data safe haven looks like. So it's very similar to a lot of the other sort of diagrams people have shown about generic TRE structures. So we've got this common we've got hub and spoke models. We've got this sort of common area management area where we handle user identity, authentication, that kind of stuff. And then each project gets its own isolated environment for doing the work. So they obviously have, sort of standard compute and databases and various collaborative tools and that kind of thing. So the idea is that we want all these to be reproducible deployments. So they're all scripted. We can easily bring one of these things up, tear it down, and if we need to, reproduce exactly the same environment again tomorrow. And we also want them to be productive research environments. So we try and bundle them up with a lot of the sort of useful tools that we found that our users want. And again, just to emphasize that all of this is open to contributions. We're not trying to make this our thing. We want the community to get involved. We want people to use this and adapt it to their own purposes and contribute those changes back so that everyone can use them. So these are the kind of things we support at the moment. I don't think this is everything, but it's a subset of the things that come along with our, what we call batteries included research environment. So this is something we developed over time based on user requirements. We have also, of course, like scalable compute. So we have, GPUs, we have the ability to, because this is cloud-based, the ability to scale up and down in terms of, sort of the amount of compute resources available to users. The data can be held in databases. It could be held just as files in cloud storage. We have access to, various package repositories like PyPy and CRAN, or a subset of them, depending on sort of security level of the project in question. And then some collaborative tools like, a Git server, collaborative document writing, things like that. So our code base is open, as I just said. So our code and our documentation are freely available. It's being used in production, as I said, at Turing, also beyond that. So I know the University of Nottingham are using this. The University of Exeter are running a project with this at the moment this week. I know others like the Health Foundation have taken this and adapted it. We really want as many people as are interested to get involved, to try out our code, see if it works for you, and get in touch with us if it doesn't, and let us know, what we could do to change it and make it fit your needs better. So yeah, if you're interested in getting involved, here are some links, not very helpful here as a demonstration, but I think these slides are going to be shared on Zenodo after this talk, so you'll be able to click through to these. But yeah, we have our documentation on Read the Docs, we have our open GitHub repository, a Slack workspace you're welcome to join, and then of course you can email us. We have a email address for the core development team. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're coming up to near the end, I think. The next talk is from Ibrahim Farah, how our future health built its first TRE.
All right, so I'm going to try and make my talk quite short because I think it's been quite a long sort of morning and afternoon. Try and make it as interesting as possible. So yeah, my name is Ibrahim Farah. I'm product manager at Our Future Health, and I'm leading on building the TRE, but also doing some work on genetic data. Does anyone know what Our Future Health is about? Hands up. Yep, show of hands. Great, cool. So essentially what the program is, we want to recruit 5 million volunteers across England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland in approximately 5 years. And the goal of the program is to be able to accelerate the detection of diseases. And sort of the program has been quite intense so far, at least for me, is one of the most intense projects I've worked on. We got our first volunteer, I think, May 2021. And I think up until now, we have around 800,000 consented participants and 500,000 questionnaires filled in. And we only started proper recruitment last October, so it's been quite intense. This is just a quick overview of the researcher platforms. So the research and data program aspect of Our Future Health was set up in September 2021. And this is kind of how it looks like so far. So we've tried to implement the 5 SAFEs principles. We've got the registered researcher who kind of fills in basic information about themselves. They'll then submit a study. Once they have submitted a study, it will get looked by the access process committee, and then they will have their data dispensed to them within the TRE. The TRE is being built by DNA Nexus, who also built the UKRI app, and the cloud infrastructure is by Azure. So it's a shout out earlier. one thing I wanted to point out in the TRE is that one of the unique features that we have at the moment is the two types of projects. So we have the unrestricted projects and the restricted projects. The unrestricted projects is internet access, so the users are able to access the internet, pulling code through GitHub and other means, and there's access to synthetic data. And then in the restricted projects is where the real study data basically lies. There's no access to internet there at all. And as of the summer, we built basically completely new feature. So DNA Nexus never had an airlock capability, and we kind of designed an airlock basically from scratch with DNA Nexus, and hopefully that we'll be using that soon when we have real studies come through. So we've launched essentially 2 releases of the TRE so far, the alpha and beta. So the alpha phase is actually so we launched it like a year ago, and essentially we just signed the contract with DNA Nexus, and we kind of wanted to know how we wanted to configure the TRE. And so what we did is we had the DNA Nexus platform out of the box. We gave it to some internal users. For about a month or so, they kind of played around with it. There was synthetic data, hairs and genetic data, and everyone's given £50 credit. So they played around with it for 4 weeks. And then we did some intense kind of user research to find out where are the gaps essentially in the TRE, what sort of apps are missing, what softwares, packages, et cetera. Once we did that, we moved into the beta phase. So we did about 3 months after September, just focusing on nailing down requirements and building beta. This is where we sort of configured and made sure that we've got sort of Azure. We had the 2 types of projects set up. So all of the kind of unique features that made our Future Health quite unique to other DNA Nexus platforms. This is where basically the work was put in. We also had, so this beta was more of a contractual obligation for FIMS, who are the industry members that are kind of funding the project. And we gave them access to about 3,000 to 5,000 volunteer data. We launched on 10th of January. And then in June is when we had the airlock launch. At the end of the beta phase, which is for about 6 months, we had 88 registered users, 214 projects, and just around about 800 compute hours. So this is mainly Jupyter Notebook, but there were some other apps and workflows that users were kind of playing around in. The data that we had in the environment at that point was the questionnaire data. There was no linked or any other types of data available. So where we are at the moment, we are working on basically how can we optimize on beta. We created a product strategy, and the strategy is around researcher satisfaction. We have a North Star metric of NPS. So, you know, how this kind of question is like sort of how likely are you going to recommend our TRE to others? The insights from beta also led us to find 4 new opportunities. So we found that most researchers weren't starting analysis. They were struggling to run analysis. There was very low satisfaction when it came to customer support. So it's an area that we wanted to really focus on. And we found that also there wasn't a lot of time spent on conducting analysis. So we've got, this is like a whole separate presentation in itself, and I can go into like a lot of insights and details, but those are the 4 opportunities that we found basically in from beta. I think time is up. Thank you.
Okay. So Danny I didn't receive any slides from you. Is that okay? Okay, good. I was just panic. Okay. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do introduce yourself.
As soon as I saw I was the last one standing between you and lunch and conversation after a morning of listening to some phenomenal presentations, I realized a slow ease into the next session probably would be most welcomed by this group. So thank you all for the opportunity to share some insights with you today. My name is Danny Silk. I'm with the Public Service Consultants, the PSC, where we've been supporting a number of areas with their sub-national secure data environments and some related data projects. If I may, it's been so wonderful to hear about all of the insights and really zooming in throughout the morning on different projects that have really shown the evolution and the maturity of TREs. I'd like to perhaps complement that before we break with a step back to think about for these efforts to succeed, we need to be thinking about how we not only engage and coalesce as a community, but how we share these messages appropriately with the other stakeholders who will be critical for making sure these things can take hold. So I wanted to offer, based on some of the work that we've done with partners, 3 main principles to drive value from subnational secure data environments. The first one really is around crafting a clear and compelling value narrative for why these are so critical for us to move ahead with healthcare R&D. What we're seeing is, and I think this room knows perhaps best, understanding the user value of these platforms. How is this allowing for access to information more quickly, better linked data, better analytical capabilities, better sharing of code? This room obviously is quite familiar with that, but especially when it comes to a decision of whether or not to introduce a new TRE or a new SNSDE, it's really important to think about which features you are prioritizing, what is meant to differentiate, so that you can have that early view as to which features you ought to build in an early minimum viable product. Going beyond the users, we of course need to be always thinking about patient benefit and patient value. These things may not manifest, of course, in the short term, but over the arc of 5 years, 10 years, what are the examples of public benefit and public research inputs and outputs we will see from this work? How is this potentially impacting qualities? How is this impacting care for certain conditions? Especially as we think about reducing health inequalities and thinking about local data, how can we make sure that these themes and these priorities are outlined up front, even while you're still designing the concept for an SNSDE or a TRE? And finally, for certain stakeholders, it'll be really critical to talk about the economic benefit that can come from this space. So thinking about how might this drive additional research activity in your local community, as an example, or how can this align and coalesce with the larger sort of government ambition to have the UK really double down as a space where there is major advances and there is a community here to drive health R&D and wider wellness and well-being for citizens across the UK. How is this a space to drive that innovation substantively? And I think this community has done so much in that regard. How are we sharing messages for those who are not thinking about this work day in, day out, hour by hour? Having that crisp value statement will be so key to making sure you get supporters with you from day one. The next principle I'd like to talk about is thinking about how are you designing and embedding users in the solution from the very beginning. Again, this group is perhaps better suited than anyone, and we've already seen this morning the sheer number of use cases, the pain points, the research questions, where we are today, where we could be tomorrow. It's fundamentally important for every new TRE or SNSD that comes through to be saying, what is the actual way in which we are identifying who our users are? It's been wonderful to hear from Emily and team how we're thinking about the terminology even of, are they technologists? Are they technicians? What are the different hats that people might be wearing today and will wear tomorrow? And how can we develop user personas? How can we develop other user-based assets so we can clearly document those needs to how we, again, build out different features for some of these platforms? There's a second bit around making sure user feedback is embedded throughout. Especially as you have an early version of an MVP and you are growing and scaling, you need to make sure you are getting those feedback loops consistently to make sure you are aware of, is it the right level of support? Are these the right data sets? Are we making sure we are developing a simplified and optimized user journey? And where we are not, where there are cracks in the system, how do we immediately target those, course correct, and make sure these work for users? If these can't work for users, they will not work. Finally, there's something around how do you think about ongoing engagement? Can you imagine when the smartphone first came out and how users used V1 of a smartphone versus where we are now in 2023? It's a whole different world. So as TREs evolve, and I love the presentation on the training agenda and the capacity building agenda, how do we make sure that we are sort of bringing users with us to not only co-design the solutions, but moving towards that North Star, and again, that clear value statement up front. And the last bit is around the importance of building iteratively and transparently. It needs to instill more public confidence. It will have your other stakeholders beyond this community make sure there is clarity in what this is and what it is not. There's so much happening in terms of pace of change. It's so important to bring people along on the journey with us. And I think communities like this are so important in showing those standards, showing that maturity. So with that, I hope you find that of interest. It's important to make sure others who are, again, not in this every day still are with us on the journey, and happy to have further conversations as we go throughout the afternoon. Thank you very much.